So this is a lovely card and just a slightly different take on what you've seen us doing before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the embossing folder that we've got that has that lovely kind of gap in the middle for you to be able to work from, and it works brilliantly as a base for a topper or as an aperture for you to cut out, as I've done here. So I'm just going to show you a great all over background inking technique and how to deepen your colours with your inks. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off by actually embossing the base card. So I've cut myself a piece of card just slightly smaller, and what I've done is I've started off with one of the base cards, cut the cards slightly smaller to go on the front seam, right? So that's going to go inside the embossing folder. I'm not worried about putting any ink or anything inside the folder, but what we are worried about is getting that perfectly centrally aligned. So can you see I've got that aligned all the way around? Now, because it's a regular embossing folder, we're just going to use our 2 cutting plates, but to give it a little bit of extra pressure, I'm going to add in the magnetic. It's just a great little tip that any time, if you've got because you can use embossing folders from different brands once you've learnt these techniques. Any embossing folder, for all we see in the instruction booklet, you need the 2 clear plates. You can always add a little bit of extra shim if you want more pressure. When we say an extra shim, sometimes a sheet of cardstock's enough. In this case, I'm really pushing the board out and putting the magnetic shim in because it's quite thick. But you'll see, it's just worth it for giving us that lovely extra deeper emboss. Now, I'm going to then, if you remember what I showed you when we did the first technique, how we do the inking. I'm going to take a base, one of our sponges here, and I personally prefer working with the round ones. I find they're easier to control in my hand, but some people prefer the square ones. It's whatever you're used to. And I'm going to work with red berry and Bordeaux. So I'm going to start with the red berry, and remember, I find it a lot easier if you put your ink down first and you pick up your ink, and we're going to load up the ink applicator just by doing circles round and round, and just picking those circles up. What it does is it's working the ink right the way into the centre. So I'm going to start off circular motions all over because I want the whole of the base card to be red. It doesn't matter about how much ink I'm getting on here, so I can go all the way around. Now, can you see if I keep going now, look how much less ink we've got here to what we have here. That's because I've used up all of the ink. So do the same, I can just pop it down, pick up a bit more, and then you can see again we're now coming in with loads more of that ink. And because we're working with the embossed pieces, I'm going over and over to get into every little nook and cranny, and that's what this applicator is about. If I hadn't done a very, very deep emboss, it wouldn't matter, but because I have done that nice deep emboss, it's taking a little bit of extra work just to get into every one of those spaces. And we're going to cut out the centre, so it's absolutely fine just to leave that centre there. All right, so happy with the fact that I've got red all over. Now, how our Harmony ink pads work, if you use our Harmony ink pads, and you can do this with any kind of water-based blendable ink pads, but if it is our Harmony ink pads that you're working with, what you'll find is in each set we get multiple shades of the different colour. So I'm taking the Bordeaux, which is from the same collection, which is just deepening it down a little bit. So again, if I pop the ink down, it's from the same colour family. So all I can do is I can pick up that brown. I can use the same sponge because I'm not going back with any more red, so we don't need to go lighter again. Pick up the brown. Then I find the easiest way to work to this is I'm just going to deepen down the edges. So I'm holding this here and I'm just going to deepen around that edge, and I'm working in circular motions off the edge of the card and bringing it in a little bit. Can you see? So whereas with the red I just went straight into the centre, I'm starting around the edge and I'm deepening that in, and it just gives me depth and dimension. So I do the same again, a little bit more of that brown, and have you noticed I'm working around where I put the colour? So I'm picking it down and then just essentially dragging it onto the card a little bit. So you can see there the difference. Here's where we've got the deeper, darker piece, and then here's where we haven't applied it yet. And you can really see the difference between those two there. All right, so just going to do that all the way around. And if I do want a little bit more of that brown, I can always go just over where we've embossed it, and all it'll do is it'll pick up the brown over top of the emboss. Now look at that, look how rich and deep It's that beautiful contrast. Now, you could never achieve that with one colour. That's how we've designed the ink pads, so that when you are doing embossing techniques like this, you can add depth and dimension to your projects by using the blendable inks that are going to work together lovely, right? Now, good habit to get into is always give that a little bit of a wipe down, because what we don't want to do is be getting red on our base card now. So we've got that nice and clean, and even if you want to take a little bit of dry wipe, we want to get that dried up. Now, what I have done is I've just taken a craft knife now and just cut. You just need to go all the way around the inside. So whether you do it with a craft knife or perhaps you like to work better with scissors, but you're going to go all the way around and cut that out on the inside. What I've done is I've got one here where I've done the cutting out ready, and I've also put some 3D foam tape all over the back just to raise that up. So that is going to go nicely onto the front of our card. But before I do lie it down, I've taken one of those toppers and I'm going to position that topper underneath. So I want to get that exactly in the right place to then stick this over. And the best way to do that is to use your Collall all-purpose glue, because it has that manoeuvrability time. So what I can do is I can put this down in the centre, manoeuvre this into what I think is the centre part. Then I'm going to lie this over, and the important thing is to get this centrally aligned in the card. So I'm not looking at where I've got the base piece, I'm looking at my base card. So once I've got that right into place, I can push this and manoeuvre this into position, because I've used that 3D glue gel, the Collall all-purpose. So it's the Collall all-purpose I'm using, and it's brilliant for that, having that little bit of manoeuvrability time. So that gives me the base kind of card to work from. And then I thought we'd do a little couple of butterflies. So remember, in your set, as well as having all the embossing folders, we've got loads of the stamps to work with. So all I'm going to do is take one of those stamps, and I'm going to stamp a few images. Now I'm going to stamp them on the rocker block. So when you're working on the rocker block, you want to pop your stamp right in the centre. Now, I'll be really honest, I'm going to use the honey pot from the Harmony dies. These are the blendable inks. They're not necessarily designed for stamping, so you won't get a clear, crisp image. If you're wanting to do stamped images, our other ink pads, so for example, the Finesse would work beautifully well, but I do want a bit of yellow, and it's not important to have that depth and detail. So I'm just going to stamp a couple of butterflies along here, ready to cut out. So you can see there, you've got the detail, but it's a little bit dotty, and that's just the nature of this sort of ink pad. This sort of ink is not designed for stamping with. This sort of ink is very much designed for your blending techniques. But it's still going to give me a nice, if you've only got these type of inks, it's going to give me a nice lemon butterfly. So it's good practice to get into the habit of always replacing your stamps back, keeping them nice and organised. Now, all I've done is I've actually taken these butterflies and cut them out. So I've cut two of them out, and then just round the edge, you're just going to use your tool, again, just to take the starkness off the edge and just to deepen it a little bit further. And you see the lovely effect that's given, and all I'm doing is using the ink that's left over from when we did our work on the base card, and it just ties the butterflies back into what we're doing, all right? So we're knowing exactly the same shades there. So there's our butterflies, and then all I'm going to do is lift their wings up, and to get them perfectly into place, I'm going to use the 3D glue gel. So this is the one that's a little bit like using a hot glue gun, but it's not hot. So I can position that down on both of these, and we can have these guys fluttering away around our card. So I'll put one down here, and then another one coming along up here. Again, we don't need to do an awful lot, because I think the actual embossing folder itself is giving the nice depth and dimension. You've put that dimension in with the colours, so just a few butterflies finishes it off lovely.